A few weeks ago on the channel, I reviewed the 1999 Survivor Series, a night in which the entire hierarchy in the main event scene of the WWF changed dramatically. So of course, after that, after Steve Austin is hit with a car written off television for almost a year, where do you go from there? You go to Armageddon 1999, from December 12th at the National Car Rental Center in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, the first ever Armageddon show. This was nominated by Sam Adelaide over on patreon.com/wrestling with regret. We are wrapping up some of the craziest storylines from the year, as well as beginning a couple of new ones that are going to definitely impact the way the year 2000 plays out. 17,054 folks in attendance. It's a sellout. 371,000 pay-per-view buys. Jim Ross and the King are on commentary. We got a creepy opening package about standing, fighting, my daughter, my gold, not tonight, creepy child singing. First match of the night is a tag team battle royal to see who will face the champions for the belts at the Royal Rumble. You got the Dudley Boys, Edge and Christian, the Headbangers, the Hardy Boys, the Mean Street Posse, the Acolytes, Too Cool, and the Godfather and Mark Henry. Wait a minute, did I just fall into a time warp or something? Did I suffer a stroke or go into a coma? I'm pretty darn sure Godfather and Mark Henry broke up just last month over the hose, and now they're a team again? What did I miss? Too Cool are officially good guys now, ever since they got the quote newcomer Rikishi Fatu to join up and dance with them. Of course, Rikishi just debuted after the Survivor Series. They even got their old theme song back because there was a brief period the last couple weeks on TV where they had a different theme and it was not good. Over the top rules here. Rodney is the first to go. He's dumped to the floor, but then Joey Abs runs in to replace him. Abs gets thrown out, then Rodney's back in. It's the Freebird rule, baby, but it does not last long though. Just a lot of walking around in this match here. Headbangers are next to go. Acolytes dump Mark Henry out, so he and Godfather are gone. Grandmaster Sexay walks into a shot with his pants halfway down for some reason. Scotty 2 Hottie and Christian fighting on the apron until both Scott and Sexay are gone. Edge is yoinked off the apron by Devon, meaning we're down to the Acolytes, the Dudleys, and the Hardy Boys. 3D to Jeff, but then Matt eliminates Devon. Jeff with a great springboard moonsault onto Farouk here. Matt and Bradshaw tumble out at the same time, but for some reason there's only one ref in this thing, and he's out of position, so they both have to go back in. Farouk's thrown out, but the ref misses that as well. Lots of close calls for Bradshaw. He and Matt both hang on until Jeff is flung out of the ring and the Acolytes win. I give it 1.5 stars out of 5. This match by its very nature is kind of messy, so you can't really expect much out of it. I mean, there were a couple of entertaining moments like the bit with the Mean Street Posse cycling in and out, and then the finish I thought was pretty clever to how they teased the Hardys potentially winning twice, but a lot of quick eliminations, not much to this thing besides that. Lilian Garcia backstage with Kurt Angle, who is on an unbeaten streak if you don't count the tag team loss he and Steve Blackman suffered last week, which he does not because he didn't take the fall. He doesn't understand why the fans have been booing him lately, but he knows that Southern Florida will respect an Olympic gold medalist. They do not, it turns out. In fact, they don't really give him much of a response at all as Kurt Angle makes his way out to wrestle the Lethal Weapon, Steve Blackman. Angle wants to talk about the 3 eyes, but Blackman cuts him off. Off to a fast start here. Big missile drop kick, but Steve does go for a flying headbutt and misses. Kurt hits a drop kick that JR says he didn't learn that in the Olympics. It's the WWF style. Kurt goes up top and goes for his moonsault. That surprise, he misses. Blackman in that cool bow and arrow, but the hold is broken, telegraphing a backdrop, but Kurt capitalizes. A boring chant arrives. More back and forth. Big Angle sucks chant now. Blackman goes on a run the fans don't care about. Kurt hitting a German suplex with the bridge, pins to win, but Blackman does not take the loss very well. And oh, now the fans cheer for him. I give this 1.5 stars out of 5. This was kind of a boring matchup, I think, for all intents and purposes. I'm not expecting Kurt at this point in the game to be in these big personal feuds that have a lot of heat to him, but this one really doesn't have a whole lot of heat to it. I don't think that Steve's character is quite dynamic enough to really be a good foil for Kurt's whimsy here, because Kurt's shtick is not exactly getting over yet. It's not getting a big response right out the gate, and so it's going to take a little more coaxing for the fans to warm up and really begin to hate Kurt, but right now they're kind of apathetic to him. Backstage, oh, lady curves, oh, what is the meaning of this? We get a recap of what happened on Heat, where the Fabulous Moolah pushed Ivory into a big pool. We go back to the Silhouette and Michael Cole trying to string some words together as he gets a word with BB.
Yeah, thanks. You're welcome. I gotta go.
Well, folks, that can only mean one thing. It's time for the evening gown swimming pool match for the Women's Championship as Ivory defends against Jacqueline, Miss Kitty, and BB, the former EMT, who's really not going to be doing much of note after this match happens. Moolah and Mae Young are the guest referees here. This match is the third match officially for Miss Kitty, who at this point has been Chyna's sidekick, and during the build of the pay-per-view, Chyna just kind of put Miss Kitty in this matchup, and Kitty's protesting because, Chyna, I don't wear underwear! Ooh! The match officially begins once Ivory's thrown into the pool. Ivory and Jackie are actually trying to work here, while BB and Kitty just walk around and splash each other. Jacqueline is the first to go, and we get a glimpse of a famous Bruce Pritchard saying. Jerry Lawler sounded pretty proud of himself when he said of BB, "She'll never drown, she's got built-in life preservers, ha!" BB is stripped, but Ivory wants more. She spends ages trying to get the bra off before Kitty stops her and gets booed for it, naturally. Greco-Roman zipper lock, as JR calls it, and Kitty disrobes Ivory to win the match and the Women's Championship. What a victory for women's wrestling. After the match, she's ready to get naked, y'all. She does the strip tease. She actually exposes herself for a second before Sergeant Slaughter dives in. I think he kind of missed his cue there from what I've heard. Not to be outdone, Mae Young also trying the same thing, but she is stopped much earlier by Sergeant Slaughter. Well, I don't know what I was expecting. I will say one note I have about this is that the day afterward on Raw, Miss Kitty made her official name change to The Cat. Backstage, Kevin Kelly interviewing Rikishi Fatu. He's teaming with Viscera against the Hollies. They show the fracas that happened on Heat between them during the weigh-in. And Rikishi's first words under this gimmick are, "Hickory dickory dock, Rikishi finally talks." He says he's going to be standing up for all the fat, healthy people in the world as we go to this very strange match as he and Viscera take on the Hollies. Crash has been around for a while now, but for whatever reason tonight, he's wearing Hardcore's tights again, which that was okay when he first debuted, but come on now, it's been a couple of months. Rikishi is called a newcomer, even though he's been around forever in some form or fashion of the company under various gimmicks. Big Key starts off with a big sit, but Crash somehow kicks out. Bob tags in, and Rikishi throws him around. Viscera not wanting to give Rikishi the tag at first, but when he gets in, he slams both Hollies aplenty. Jerry can't stop making references to Miss Kitty at all times. Nice missile dropkick by Hardcore. Rikishi tags back in, and as a house of fire, no-sells Bob's DDT, hits the Rikishi driver on Crash. We had accidental contact from Vis to Quiche. Bob Holly gets the pin and the upset win. We get a bit of a brawl between the big boys after the bell. Give it up for the fat, healthy people, everyone. I'm going to give this 1 star out of 5. I mean, what an odd pairing this is for Rikishi and he and Viscera. I mean, at this point, Rikishi's pretty firmly hitched to Too Cool. Like, that's the act as of right now. So for them to have kind of stepped backward, it feels, for him to go team with for Viscera, I should say, even though it was, you know, for this very brief one-off thing, kind of comes out of nowhere because I think Rikishi's path is very clear and Viscera is just kind of like in the way, it seems. The match itself wasn't fantastic, but at least the story they were trying to tell, as little sense as it made, was executed okay. Lilian Garcia backstage with Val Venis, who's challenging for the European title. He says that when he wins the title, he's gonna get with all the ladies of Europe. He's the Eiffel Tower and Big Ben all rolled into one. Spanish, 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 Spanish. Up next, the British Bulldog defends the European Championship against Val Venis and friend of the show, D'Lo Brown. It's so wild seeing Bulldog in the shape that he's in at this point, because think about a little more than a year before this point, Fall Brawl 98. That's the night that Bulldog got injured with the trap door on the ring, hurting his back. But even at that point, he is not looking in great shape. He's just looking very puffy at that point. For him to battle back from a huge back injury and the painkiller addiction that really got out of hand because of that injury, and also get into that shape that he was in by late 99, like, what do you think he had to put his body through to get there? Teddy Long, the referee, sending the Mean Street Posse to the back from the get-go. By the way, side note on Teddy Long, I've been meaning to talk about this for a while because he has certainly been a part of the Federation at this point, being a referee and everything. What a weird career path for him to have gone from WCW, where starts out as a referee and a gopher and everything, works his way up to becoming an on-air personality as a manager and then as a broadcaster and everything, then having to pretty much go through that whole process over again in the World Wrestling Federation. How many times have you heard of someone coming up and being an on-air character and then going to, and being full-fledged, like personality and everything. You're involved in storylines, and then you go to a different company and you just like start from the bottom again and you're not even a real character. Who else has gone through that? All three guys start out guns blazing. D'Lo with a big dive over the top onto his opponents. Bulldog gets back in after the dive. Some shaky alliance is being formed here. D'Lo trying a springboard move of some kind, but he slips. Not great, but cool to see him going all out and trying different things in this matchup. Val and D'Lo try working together. They almost drop Bulldog onto his head with a hip toss. D'Lo with a big sunset flip off the top rope, but Bulldog pulling Teddy out of the ring during the count. Bulldog hits the running power slam, but D'Lo gets Val's foot on the ropes. Bulldog keeps taking awkward looking bumps before D'Lo hits the lowdown, but Val hits the money shot onto both of them. He pins Bulldog to win and become the champ. I give it 1.5 stars out of 5. This match was pretty rough to get through. I mean, I think it was a better / maybe more exciting match than the original match on paper would have been, because that was supposed to be just Bulldog and Venis, and then D'Lo was a late addition to this thing. So I think D'Lo being put into it did make it more exciting, because D'Lo was certainly trying out there, but I think that Bulldog looked really bad. There was just, a real big lack of chemistry. They weren't really clicking, and a lot of botches that were kind of hard to overlook. Michael Cole backstage with X-Pac. Let's talk about the cage match coming up and the demands that X-Pac has made for said match. X-Pac having a hard time saying that Kane can only win the cage match via pinfall, but X-Pac can win by escaping or pinning, also accusing Tori of calling his hotel room at all hours of the night, but she ain't gonna get none. So we go to that cage match now. It's Kane versus X-Pac. It is a continuation of what's really gonna turn out to be feeling like a pretty endless feud, and I really didn't talk about it too much in the last review, but this is the beginning of what becomes known as the X-Pac Heat era. I think a lot of the sleazy stuff that X-Pac does. I mean, first of all, he's the ultimate heel turning on the big red babyface Kane. And then what we see happening, the stuff he's doing to Tori in the build to this, being just really antagonistic, really sleazy, and where things are going to go from here even, I think it's just really, it's the death knell for his character. And X-Pac becomes synonymous with just like the worst, most abysmal heat, because it was rough at first to watch because, oh, he's a dirty heel. And then the fact this angle just kept on going makes it kind of unbearable to the point where we don't want you on TV anymore. That was X-Pac heat. Anyway, there's a scuffle on the outside. X-Pac decking Kane with the ring bell. They climb back in and the match officially begins. Kane's throwing X-Pac around early on as King can't stop making what Jim Ross calls penis innuendos. Pac comes back with the heel kick. Big top rope leg drop, but Kane powers out. Tornado DDT. Kane sits up and hits the seated goozle, which leads to a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. Kane's got this thing won when suddenly the Outlaws show up with bolt cutters. They break the chain, keeping the door closed, slam it in Kane's face. Kane is handcuffed to the cage wall and X-Pac bashes him with a chair. He goes to leave, but Tori gets in the way. X-Pac spits in her face and hits the X-Factor. See what I mean, folks? Kane breaks the cuffs, intercepts X-Pac on the way out, which is a pretty funny visual, dumping him back in the ring. Kane goes up top, way up top, hits the big old clothesline, the tombstone. Kane wins. 3 stars out of 5 for me on this one. Finally, a decent match on the evening. I mean, the match was really, had a great satisfying conclusion at the end of this thing, and had the storyline ended here, I think it would have been just like perfect arc, open and shut case, call that one good, but no, it keeps going. I'm pretty sure Tori betrays Kane and joins up with X-Pac like within the week. The Intercontinental Championship on the line as Chyna defends once again against Y2J Chris Jericho, and things have escalated a whole lot since Survivor Series. The night after the pay-per-view, Jericho snapped, abducted Chyna, and bashed the bejesus out of her thumb with a hammer in a dark room. I mean, it was pretty brutal stuff. The way they staged that was very much kind of smoke and mirrors to cover up a lot of what was happening, but it was pretty horrifying to watch, and just crazy that the escalation, the way it went up there, like you think about, oh, the illustrious career of Chris Jericho and all the things he's accomplished. They don't tell you about this in the highlight package about Jericho. It's just so wild, because once you escalate to bashing people in the hands with hammers in your first like 5 months in the company, like where do you go from that? Also, maybe it's just a network re-edit, redub thing, but I love how like things are so heightened in this feud and how escalated and violent it's got with the hand bashing with the hammer, yet the best the hype package team can seem to muster, unless it's a redub or something, it's just generic highlights of the two having fought for the last couple of months to the tunes of their respective theme songs. Like, boring. We get the cool moment of Chyna and Miss Kitty each holding the gold on stage. Jericho with the jump on Chyna as the match begins. Jericho flies himself out of the ring and Chyna with a dive after him. Chris grabs a chair and starts to swing, but Miss Kitty gets involved and he takes a dropkick to the mush with the steel. Jericho with one more grooch to Miss Kitty goes to the flying nothing, but Chyna hits a low blow instead. Chyna's tied up in the ropes and Jericho gets to thumb punching. Chris exposes Chekhov's turnbuckle. Chyna begins to make a comeback and wait, I'm sorry, what does that sign say? Chyna blocks a powerbomb, slingshots Jericho into the exposed bolt. We get a 2 count. More near falls. Chyna looking real strong here. Jericho gets the walls locked in and after a struggle, Chyna taps and Jericho wins his first of a record-setting 9 Intercontinental titles. I give it 3 stars out of 5. This match is a big improvement over what they have at Survivor Series, and I don't know how much of it has to do with the experience they collectively gained with each other under their belts between first show and the second one, or whether the hand injury storyline just kind of helped up the drama and make it more interesting. The match quality, it's not perfect, still kind of rough around the edges, but still a lot of good, a lot more good in there, I would say, than the last one. It was faster paced. I think it was very exciting. Crowd dug it, and yeah, I think it was a good piece of business for both of them. A good testament to both of them to be able to improve the way they did from the previous match. And also, like I said, this is going to be the beginning of Jericho's just huge career in WWE. His first title there, first of many. Then afterward, Jericho in the promo zone talks about how the title will be prestigious once again. Chyna shows up and Jericho's ready to fight, but Chyna showing some sportsmanship and offers her hand. Jericho hesitantly takes it and they shake. Future co-champions, everyone. Up next for the tag team championships, the New Age Outlaws defend against the returning Rock and Sock Connection. A nice feel-good story to wrap up this dismal Q4 of 1999 is the reunion of Rock and Sock. Mankind's partnership with Al Snow falls apart because Al is jealous of Foley's relationship with The Rock. There's a moment where Rock references something Mick had written in his book, which means he must have read it. Al admits that it was he who threw Foley's book in the trash, not Rocky. The betrayal! Well, now bygones are bygones with Mankind and The Rock. They're back together to challenge for the tag titles. Mankind wearing the rare blue shirt. He starts out against both Outlaws before tagging in The Rock to a big ol' pop. The visual of Billy Gunn selling punches while he's mid-shirt removal is one of the best things all show. Road Dogg goes to the dancing punches, but Mankind counters with the mandible claw. Things move to the outside for a bit. Gunn hits what's basically a diamond cutter on a Rock from out of the corner, and man, between that and the jackhammer and the flare flop and the rocker dropper, like what else is Billy Gunn copping here? Road Dogg throws Rock into the corner, does the crotch chops with some of the weirdest noises I've ever heard. Like what is that? Meanie, 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 meanie. Rock takes the dog to Dick Kick City, but the Outlaws still too quick for him. Rock worn down for a minute, but hits that float over DDT. Hot tag to Mankind, who's all over Dogg and Gunn, does his own little dance, but he takes out the referee by mistake. Referee is picked up and hit once again, and Foley wants to get out Sacco, but there's Al Snow. Decks Mankind with head. Ref makes the count, but the Rock pulling the ref out. Rock goes after Al, hits him with head, but then the Outlaws deck Mankind with the ring bell. Man, big no mercy preview. Somehow there's a kick out, a pile driver, another kick out. Rock gets tagged back in. He goes crazy. Rock bottom to daddy ass and a cover, but Al Snow gets back in there and attacks. Rock and Sock win by DQ. Rock bottom to Road Dogg, 1 to Al Snow. People's elbow, so at least the segment ends on a high note. I give it 3 out of 5 stars here. Solid match, disappointing ending. And the thing with the Rock and Sock stuff, it's just a nice kind of like detour for The Rock because he's about to be launched into that next level of being the main event face here with Austin's absence. So this is kind of a holding pattern thing for Rock, but it helps he and Mankind. It gets the Al Snow thing over a little more, even though people don't really want to see a heel Al Snow, and him feuding against Foley, it's this curse that's been having with people trying to challenge Foley as a heel. First it was Val Venis, and now it's Al Snow, and neither of them really work out. In your semi-main event for the WWF Championship, the Big Show defends against the Big Boss Man. Yep, things are still going on here between the two. The only true escalation in terms of the psychological torture Boss Man has been waging against the Big Show is there's this new wrinkle here where there's footage being shown of the Boss Man talking to Big Show's mother, who admits that Big Show is a bastard child, that he's illegitimate, and that the person who died was not really his father. And of course, it's all wrapped up with a bow with Boss Man yelling, "You hear that, Big Show? You're a nasty bastard, and your mama said so." That's way funnier than his dad being dead. My God, what a heel. Boss Man does win the #1 contendership after beating The Rock thanks to some cheating. So yeah, the boss man on his reign of terror to challenge him for the belt, but it's not like the Big Show is really setting things on fire as the world champion. The people he's been fighting with on TV so far are like the British Bulldog, Chris Jericho while he's still in the doghouse, Hardcore Holly, not exactly top tier opponents here when he's your top guy. Like clearly the real stars of the Federation, they're the ones playing right now separate from what he's doing. Also, they are really trying hard to sell you on this storyline here, and they're even moving some things around on the timeline, like putting Bossman and Albert gassing the Big Show in the trainer's room, like way after the funeral. That did not happen that way. Bossman on the mic mocking the Big Show, saying that he's going, "Who's my daddy? Where's my daddy?" Saying that him winning the title from Big Show would make him his daddy, perhaps. Show starts off going wild on Bossman. Prince Albert tries to intervene, but he gets chokeslammed to the Spanish announce table. Bossman decks Show with the steel steps right after, and then we get a boring chant, which has to be the fastest amount of time between someone going through a table and a boring chant. Show powers out of the cover, kips up to a tepid response, the choke slam, bing bang boom, Big Show wins, and now this cursed feud can finally end. This one gets a half star out of 5. How about that WWF champion, everyone? It really shows you that during this time period, they could get away with doing a lot of not great creative and pull it off and still work from a rating standpoint. Like, it was emphatic and it was what it needed to be, but it also didn't need to be for the championship. You could tell they did not really anticipate putting Show in this position. I credit the company for trying the bold move of putting the belt on him at Survivor Series as a make good for Austin being gone, but it's clear that was not their original plan, and boy, they sure book him that way. But enough of that guy. Time for the real main event, folks. It's a no-holds-barred Falls Count Anywhere match as Triple H takes on Vince McMahon. Of course, since Steve Austin is gone, it makes sense you might as well have Vince doing the work in his place in this top feud against the top heel in the company. After losing the title at Survivor Series, Triple H and DX have made it personal, attacking Vince's family. This leads to Vince hitting the DX limo with a car. Vince is arrested and hit with a restraining order. Finally, it's time for Stephanie's wedding to test on Raw, which famously ended with Triple H interrupting and revealing he had married a drugged Stephanie McMahon in Vegas the night before after the bachelorette party. And man, watching it again and thinking back to like the time when I was like 14 years old and watching this as it was happening, I mean, it was easily the biggest twist and one of the biggest angles WWE has ever done, not just from an Attitude Era standpoint, but like for the whole trajectory of the company. And we'll talk about the whole hindsight factor about this a little bit later in the review, but just watching that when it was happening, what a twist. I mean, even at that age and that point in my fandom, even then I knew that wrestling weddings are going to end with some kind of bullshit. So I knew like something was going to happen, but I couldn't even think about what it would have been. I never would have guessed that it would be Triple H kind of swooping in and with that just emotional gut punch, like marrying Stephanie, who's unconscious in the car, and just like the way they did it, cutting back to Stephanie weeping, and all that stuff. It was just so well done. And I mean, again, it was truly shocking. WCW wasn't doing shit like this, and if they were, it was gonna probably come off a lot more tacky, it feels like. This just felt, it was mind-blowing what they did. It was just, it kind of changed the game, no pun intended. So now the match has been made. If Vince wins, the marriage to Stephanie is annulled, but if Triple H wins, the marriage is ironclad and he gets a title shot. Stephanie's sitting in the front row to watch this one. Triple H has got Sledgy, but McMahon's got the blow. He throws it and it goes above Triple H's face, but they sell it anyway and the match is on. Someone get the sour cream and chives because Vince is bringing the potatoes. The brawling continues, goes to the outside, into the crowd, fighting in a dark area. That's fun to watch. Back at ringside, out comes Mankind with a shopping cart full of plunder just for Vince. H finally washes the powder out of his eyes that was never there to begin with. He's repeatedly dinked with a trash can lid. Triple H with a low blow. He begins to take over. Stephanie reacting to all this accordingly. Up on the stage, Triple H sandbagging Vince, He grabs the shopping cart and just hauls it into Vince's face. Vin Man comes back with the trash can briefly back on stage. H swings the gun around and you can see Vince trying to block it with his arm, but it still decks him in the back of the head. Holy crap. Vince comes back and actually turns the rudder of the helicopter on the set onto H's head. They're fighting in a loading area. Vince's head's so powerful it raises the door. Vince follows Triple H out in the parking lot. Where did Helmsley go? Out by the broadcast trucks. Suddenly a car comes barreling down at Vince, who gets away just in time. Shades of what happened at Survivor Series and throwing more fuel onto that speculative fire. I just couldn't believe that. Vince McMahon, like he's trying to really out Austin. I do my own stunts, pal. They brawl and a Coke bottle from above just plummets from the sky, nearly hits them and the ref. Yikes, that was close. Brawling continues around the arena. Fans able to watch from the balcony. Slam on the roof of the limo, followed up with the elbow. What a moment for those fans to see that live. Back into the arena they go. Dude, security guy, get out of the way. Vince and Triple H go up to the scaffolding on the set, and Vince is sent down 15 or so feet down onto that floor, that crash pad. Vince is busted open and gets dinked with a gas can. H-Man on the mic talking down to Stephanie, and now he is the second person tonight who's been like, I'm gonna be your daddy in a promo, which is a weird coincidence. Vince is a crimson mask. He's right up in Steph's face as she's weeping and saying, I love you, like she's watching him die. Triple H grabs Sledgy. He's gonna go in for the kill, but Vince takes H to Dick Kick City. Goes to town on Hunter with a lead pipe. Shades of No Mercy 03 many years later. He grabs Sledgy, goes in for the kill, but then Stephanie runs in. She says she wants to do the final blow. She rears back, but she doesn't have the heart to do it. Trips grabs Sledgy, lays into Vince with it, once in the stomach, one in the head, pins in the foot. Triple H wins. Stephanie looking over her fallen fathers. Triple H threatens to hit her. They look at each other. Stephanie smiles. They hug. They kiss. What in the Sam hell is going on here? Only a little bit of wrestling history. I give this 3.5 stars out of 5. It's not great, but it's still the match of the night. It is certainly a very wild and entertaining brawl from beginning to end. I mean, credit to both guys here. Not only does Triple H have to carry Vince McMahon around, who's not a wrestler, in this big match environment on pay-per-view. Triple H apparently injured his leg that same day doing run-through, so he's on one good leg basically doing this. And Vince is Vince. And so, but credit to him though for being able to get up and do a whole fight and running around half the arena and falling off crazy stuff and almost getting hit by a car in the span of like 30 minutes. This guy was a marathon man. And the big twist and the payoff at the end that Steph and Triple H are in on this together from the beginning is just really well done. Again, a big twist after big twist here. They really pull it off. I think that the way they explain it the next night is also well done, that Stephanie did it to get revenge on her father for using her as a pawn in his war against Steve Austin, which of course helped form the corporate ministries. That's another foul against Vince for that. So them going back and explaining that this whole thing was premeditated from the start really makes the whole drugged wedding thing go down a lot easier in hindsight, but also just a great development for Stephanie's character. I mean, she is fed to the sharks pretty quickly. She's fairly inexperienced at this point, but she takes to it really well and just goes on to become one of the most compelling, one of the most interesting characters in WWE. And of course, she and Triple H run things together in kayfabe at this point, and then in real life behind the scenes, this on-air partnership, this relationship does become real life relationship. Unfortunately, it comes at the expense of Chyna's career and eventually just sends her on this tragic downward spiral. But as for Triple H and Stephanie, they do get married and you go on to run the company today in 2022, not just in kayfabe. My grade for Armageddon 1999 is a C. This is a show that really gets going in the second half of things. Like the match, in terms of match quality and entertainment, things do improve a lot from the first half of the show. And this is just, I say this a lot in this review, but this is an especially weird time, this post-Steve Austin injury, pre-WrestleMania 2000 stuff. 2000 is going to be a banner year for the WWF. They're going to have some gimmicks that are just going to kill, but they're not here yet. You see them and they're very primordial, but they really haven't reached their peak. And things are going to get very interesting in just a month or two. Just like pairings are going to make sense, characters are going to make sense, and they're going to really be hitting their stride, and it's going to be awesome. But this is a point right now where you're just kind of like morphing from this Steve Austin era to this Triple H and Rock-led era, and it's really fascinating to see how everything's kind of congealing and where everything's shaking out right now at the end of '99. Well, next week on the Classic Review, folks, we are going to WCW, the year 1996, and Roddy Piper challenges his longtime rival Hollywood Hogan for the title? It's Starrcade 96. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.